Hi everyone. This is Sai from Let's Upgrade. So let's talk about how to get your certificate. It's very simple. You will see two links in the description. Number one is the place where you have to go and mark your attendance. Marking your attendance tells us like, okay, you are a legit student who have attended this particular session. Link number two is your assignment. This is where your 90% of the priority is. You have to go and submit the assignment that is given to you in this particular session. Once you're done submitting that assignment, we will be evaluating that. We will send you an email. If you get the passing criteria, then only we will give you the certificate on a particular date that is mentioned again in the description. Please check these three things, and this is the way how you will get a certificate from Let's Upgrade. Number one, mark your attendance. Number two, just go ahead and upload your assignment. Check for the email that you have received it, yes or no. What is the feedback that you have received from your trainer? Number three, check on which date the certificates will be released. Thank you. Bye. All the best. Happy learning.
Hey Rowdies, welcome back to Let's Upgrade. And for today's video, we are trying to develop a expense tracking app, obviously with help of React. But before moving into the code part, let's try to figure out what are the features we are gonna implement in this project. What is the final output gonna look like? Okay, so let's see the demo. What I will do is open my browser, and inside this browser, I will just paste the link that React has gave us to preview our local applications. Okay, so I'll just hit enter after pasting this. And okay, so this is our final output, and this is how it looks like. And very top, we have the title of or the heading of our page, and then we have the total amount spent, then the highest amount that we have spent together all together, and uh, there's the total expense count, so how many expenses I have done over the time. And below it we have a beautiful pie chart showing us how exactly you're spending, how exactly and what amount I'm spending inside the shopping category, maybe in the food category, and here are the labels for this. And below that we have the expense form, so I can add my expense here. I will show you one by adding one. Okay, so let's try to add maybe prepaid bill, and it's for 499, and the category goes into bills, and it might be I did it today itself, so I will choose the expense date as today, and I will add the expense. So as soon as I say add expense, see, my the pie chart before adding this expense was a bit different, and now it includes the expense of our bill as well. So I have spent 499 through bills, and maybe 5,000 for shopping, and 7,300 for food. And our total spend is also changed. Our higher expense will remain same because it wasn't the highest amount we have added, and our number of total expenses obviously had changed. Below that, below the expense form, we have our expenses that we have recently. Great. So this is the whole output. You can obviously go crazy about the CSS part. Frankly, I'm not worried about the CSS part and the layout part of this project. You can go ahead, be crazy, and do animations. Maybe you can flip around the boxes and grid. But the really thing I'm concerned about is how we are passing our data in our local storage, how it's rendering our data into our recent applications, how are we categorizing our expenses by, or maybe even sorting out our expenses by date and amount. Okay, now that we have seen our applications output, let's create one. For that we will have to have a new fresh React project, and to do so I have opened my terminal, and inside my desired application or folder, I will say npm create wheat at latest. Now, this wheat is something which will help us to create a new fresh React project. And after latest, I will say expense app. So now this is going to be the name of our application. Okay. So this is the whole command. After this, what I will do, I will hit enter. And now this should ask us which is the version or the framework you want to use for your application. So obviously we are working with React, and I will use the down arrow of our keyboard and select React and hit enter. Then I will go and select the variant of React, that is JavaScript. Then hit enter, and then it's asking for an experimental feature. We definitely don't need this, so by default, no is selected, and I will just hit enter. Now it will ask us installed with npm and start. Now yes, we want to use npm, and I will say yes. So now it is doing its application. It created our new project folder, and it is installing dependencies with npm. So I will give it some time, and will back. Okay, so now what has happened? It has created the application, and here's the local URL that can help us to view our application. So what I will do, I will just stop this server using Control C and CD into it. So I will do CD, and now the name of our application was expense app, and open this application in. Okay, so that our project is now successfully created. What I will do, I will open this project folder inside a code editor. You can use any code editor of your choice. I will go ahead and open my code editor, that is Z code editor, and I'll open my file here, or the project folder here. Okay, great. So now I will just go full screen so you can get a better view of this. And this is the project structure or this is the project we just installed using Vite. Okay, so that now we have created our project and opened it in our favorite code editor. What I will do, I will just open this app.jsx, and inside this application or this file, what I will do, get rid of this pre-written code, that is this whole div till the p tag, and also remove this line number 7. In my case, at least it's line number 7, and I will also remove this imports from there. Okay, so now what I have is just a function, and it exports the function itself. Okay, great. I will save this. And what I will do, inside our src folder, I will create a new folder that says components. I will also have one more folder inside src again that will keep track of our hooks. So I will name it as hooks. Okay, great. And now inside my components, there will be actual components that are we rendering. Okay, now inside components, there will be actual components that are part of our application. And as before, I have shown you, if okay, let's see if I have the preview of that code. Okay, I'll just open the browser again. Okay, so here in this whole application, this recent expenses can be a component. Again, this add expense can be one component. So I will just go back, and inside this components, I will create one component for rendering our application. So it is render, or I will just say expense list.csx, and again right click on components folder and new file, and I'll say expense form.csx. Okay, now inside expense form, what I will do is write the code to take input from user for his expenses. So we definitely need four inputs that, as we have seen here. We need a description of input, we need amount input, we need food input, not exactly food, but a drop down to select what category of expense it is, and pick a date pickup. Okay, so let's go back in our code and make the expense form. So what I will say, I will start by writing uh, export default function, and I will name function as the same as the file name, and it is expense form. Yeah, it. So we are creating a function, and on the same hand, we are also exporting that function. And inside this function, we have to return our actual HTML. So what I will do, inside a div tag, I will keep a form tag, And inside this form tag, I need one description input. I also need amount input. Okay. Thirdly, I need input for the category. So I will say just a drop down for category. And lastly, I need input for not really input, but a date picker. So I'll just say date picker. Okay. Date. Now let's actually create the, I will say input tag, and it's a self closing tag. And I will say type of this input tag should be of type text. I'll also give it a nice little placeholder which says enter expense description. And I also give an example. Let's say dinner. Okay, great. I'll do the same for amount drop down category and the date picker. So what I will do, I'll just copy this out and paste it wherever I have required. Okay, so this looks good. Now I'll just change the placeholder and type of that input tag. So for drop down, uh, okay, I will come back to drop down. First, I will let's see about the date picker. So I'll just say type of the input for date picker should be date, and placeholder can be enter date of expense. So just say X. Great. For amount, I will not change much here. I will just change the placeholder. I'll just say enter amount of expense. And finally, for the drop down, I will use select option or the select tag with options tag. So this is how we'll get the drop down, correct? So I can have multiple drop downs here. So just for now, I'll just keep it to three. And option should be first option will just say enter your category category enter your category. Okay, so guess this is category. Great. And by default, this should be disabled, and other options can be food and maybe bills. And I will also have to give the value of that option. So it will be same as the option. So I'll just say food and bills daily. I will say it's great. So now we have a date picker. We have some options and two expenses input for one for description and one for amount. Okay, let's save this and just render this out in our main application file, that is app.jsx. So we just say, I'll just go down and make a div container here, and I will say on the very first line, I will say import expense from X components expense from. So I will just say on the very first line, I will say import expense from. Okay. Okay. So on the very first line, I will say import expense from from components expense form. So this is where exactly from my form is coming. And inside dev, I will just render this expense form as a self-closing tag. Great. So this looks good. So now whenever we run our application, this app.jsx should serve this expense form to us. Okay, so I'll just open terminal here inside my code editor itself using command G on the machine. And I will just say npm run dev. And this command should give us the URL for our local application to preview the application. So just go to the browser and instead of this, I'll just paste the latest. Okay, see, give it a minute. I will just paste the latest URL and I'll just hit enter. So this gives us our the four actual uh, okay, so this gives us our actual output. And this isn't the really okay. This will give us the exact four input tags that we have actually mentioned in our application expense form. And this might not look good at this moment, but it will definitely we will definitely improve this. Okay, so back into my code editor, what I will do inside index.css, I will just say Control A or Command A and hit backspace. I will get rid of all the code. Same I will do for app.css. We'll be writing our own CSS for this part. So we don't need just CSS. And if I go back and view, so this would be on the top. Before it was in middle because it was expecting some CSS that was pre-written in our code. Okay, great. So now that we have our expenses input fields here, we'll try to okay. If I try to enter something, it will definitely enter, but I don't have any submit button. And on that submit button, we should run some function to exactly get all the data from our input form and to save inside maybe a database. Okay, great. So I will just go back to our expense form and I will add a button here. So I will say button and it is type of submit. If I can write submit, submit, let's see, maybe submit. And the button should say maybe add expense. Okay, great. And I can give this form an on submit event listener. So as soon as someone says add expense, it will go to this form and it will listen for an uh, event that is on submit and it will handle a function. In our case, it should handle expense function. Okay, so now at this point, this is yelling at us, giving this red squiggly line because we haven't defined this function. So when time comes, we'll just define it. And for now, I will just keep it blank. Great. Let's try to check our application and okay. Okay, we'll just completely get rid of this on submit. I will add it later. And it should now run as okay, good. Okay, so just like we have the value attribute here for the option tag, we'll need to have the same value attribute for the input fields as well. So I'll just say in here as value equals to something empty attributes or empty strings for now, and same for expense amount and expense date. And now unlike this uh, value attribute where we had just given some string, this can't be a string. If I say a string, maybe here I will just say uh, dinner. So the value by default for this input will be dinner, but this is not exactly what we want. This value should come from user. And unlike HTML, if this was HTML, we would have kept this value empty and then get the exact value that has been entered by the user from the DOM using JavaScript. But this is not React. This is not okay. This is not HTML and React. Okay. So this is not HTML but React. So what I will do, instead of this hard coded values, we'll need a state level variable or a state variable. Uh, and in order to declare that state variable, what I will do, I will come above this written statement, and using useState will define two variables as one for for exact that value and one for setting that value. So let me show you what I'm trying to say. So I will say use state, and this is the state, and this should give us two value. So I will say const. I'll say so we are making the value for description. So I will say description and a setter for description. So set description. Okay, it should be equal to this. Okay, just okay, description, and this here will be a array. Okay, so this use state gives us two values. That is, one is description and one is set description. Description is the actual value, and set description is something like we are using it to set a value for the description. Yeah, great. So now I can go here, and instead of value as passing as a string, I will just say description. So which is coming actually from here. Great. But uh, what is the case here? We'll have to do the same thing from for each and every input tag here. So same for amount. I will have to go ahead, copy this all, uh, paste it again, say instead of a description, say amount, instead of set description, say set amount, uh, and maybe use state again. So this would increase our code, and I don't want to increase our code. We'll try to write more and more optimized code. So what I will do, instead of having a one single instead of having different variables for each and every input, we'll get a single variable for every input. That is one object, and inside that object we will have various keys, and that can be our actual input. So what I will do, I'll just say const uh, expense, 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 set expense equals to use state. And this use state actually comes from React. So on the top of the file, I'll just say import use state from, yeah. So we have got our use state, and this use state should be an empty object initially. So inside this use state function, inside this parenthesis, we can set anything. I can say expense as a string. I can pass a number. I can even pass true or false. But for now, I will just pass an empty object. What would be better is if I go ahead and below my import statement, I can just say const initial expense and return an object. And instead of passing empty object here, I can just say initial expense here. And more better way would be passing it through an arrow function. So this is even better. Let's say it will have, yeah. Okay, so instead of directly saying in initial expense, what I did, I made an arrow function. So this is the shorthand for arrow function, and this uh, exactly returns the same thing. That is our initial expense. And inside initial expense, I can say I can have uh, description, which would be empty again for to begin with. So these are actually the initial values. And initially, when the when the form loads, there shouldn't be written anything. So there shouldn't be a pre-written input inside this our input field. So henceforth they are empty. And same I will do it for amount, same for maybe category, and same for the data also. So now inside my initial expense, I have all four input fields, and hence I can work with only one state variable, which is like writing some less code. Okay, so instead of maintaining four different state, I'm maintaining only one state for every expense, which is better. Now, I can't directly say a description here because it's inside our initial expense, and moreover, it's under expense यहाँ पे. So what I will do, instead of saying directly expense description, I will say expense dot description. So inside expense, get the description field. Likewise, and the same way, I will have to say expense dot amount for amount field. But this should be curly brackets. Great. Same for date as well. So instead of string, it should be expense dot amount. Okay, great. Nice. Now, now that we have given values in React, and this is the way it works. If I have given value, then I will have to say or give the on change method. And what this onChange method does is actually set the actual value of our variable to the value the user have given. So onChange, what onChange does, it will set the value of expense in this case description to the actual value of description that the user has written. So what I will say from e object, that is event that will occur, that from that set expense to e dot target dot value. Okay. So what we have done in short here, if suppose if this was not React and it was HTML, what we did was inside our JavaScript, we used to get this element and then we used to target it using target dot value. So instead of going up into our JavaScript and finding the element using ID, we have directly got the event here, and from that event object we have got target, and from that target, that is this actually this input, we are getting the exact value. So the value would be this value, and which would be imported by our user. So I will do the same thing for our amount as well and for date as well. I will come back to this select option, the drop down option, because it's a bit different. So I'll just finish the similar looking inputs now. Okay. What we are doing here is exactly is setting our expense to the target value of this input. But what we have to do is maintain our previous expense. That is, maybe we started with getting description. So our user came, he got the initial empty object. He filled the description. Maybe he said dinner. He said dinner. So our value of this should be dinner. And then we say set expense as the target value of this input. So this should be set to dinner. Now our entire expense object is set to dinner. Then we are going ahead for our amount input and we are saying, hey boss, set expense to this target value, that is amount. So what will happen? It will override our whole object, discard the dinner and set it empty, and only maintain the value for amount, and which by the way is which by the way is uh, concerning. So what exactly is happening? We don't want to override whole our initial expense object, but keep the initial values. Maybe we can maintain the dinner or the description value, and also add or append the amount to it. So what we will do is set expense. Instead of accepting a single value, it will accept object, and it will preserve our previous object, previous expense, and append a new value to it. And in this case, for this input, it would be description. For this, it would be amount. For this, it would be date. So what we're saying, hey, set expense boss, please accept a object that is a curly bracket wala thing, and inside it, please preserve our previous expense, that is previous values of expense, and then also set the value of description to e dot target dot value dot value. Okay, looks good. So this way I will have to do for every input. So I'll just copy it and paste it here as well, and here as well, and change the description on here, and description to date here. Get okay, great. Now I will add on submit here the form on submit event, which will say handle expense, and I will have to create that function. So above create a return, I will just say function handle expense, and for now it will just console log our expenses. So just say expenses and just print the whole object. Okay, great. Now we are left with the select input tag. Okay, so for select, I will go on select tag and I will say value as expense dot category, and the on change would be the same as this. So I'll just say amount ke jagah uh, category. Okay, looks good. Okay, so we are done almost the form wala thing. And okay, what I will do, we are printing console.log expenses here. And after our expenses printed, I will set the expense to initial expense. Now, what will this do? See, we are the user will come to our website, input the expense, full description, amount, date, and the category, and then he or she will hit add expense. Now, what should happen? Uh, our backend should get all those values. In our case, print it out to console and empty the field. So it should keep this field empty as they are now. Again, when had expense has done is doing the thing. Okay, so hence we are setting expense to initial expense, that is empty. Okay, so I'll just get rid of this examples from here. Okay, and another thing to consider is I will pass the event object here, and I will prevent from any events here. So like I will prevent it from default actions. Okay, so what happens actually whenever I hit submit here, the form will reload. So it's reloaded. Okay, so my server is on. So I will just my turn on my server. I just say npm run dev, and this should okay, fire my server. And whenever I say add expense, see, it tries to reload the page for every time, and which should not be case in our application because it's in a React application. So when I say prevent default, it will not refresh my application when I say add expense. I guess there's some issue why it's refreshing. Let's say, okay, it should prevent default, not prevent dot default. Okay. Now, if I say it won't refresh my uh, application even though I'm clicking add expense. Okay. Now, what I will do, I will just go to inspect, right clicking inspect, and I'll just get rid of all this thing. Now, see, if I go here, I'll try to add one entry. So we'll say dinner. The amount is maybe 200 rupees. Okay. And food, okay, it's type of food, and date is 23. Okay, did I say 23? And I'll say add expense. So what happened is description, I got the value printed in here as an object, description as dinner, amount as 200, category as food, and date as 23. And later our input fields were emptied out. And one thing I noticed is when I say uh, date picker and I say 24, it does not shows our value. So we'll go in back in our code and try to figure out why it's happening. Okay, let's see. Input. Okay, so we are displaying amount here, so it should be date here. Great. Now, if I go again, try to refresh and 24, it says 24. Great. Okay, and this should be it just should not select food by default. It should select enter your category. So what I can do, I'll just go up and I will say select it. It just should do our job. Uh, just get rid of disabled, I guess. Yeah, and now I can select food, but also I can select category. Then just shouldn't be happening. So selected and then disabled. I guess this should do our job. Okay. Okay. So this is not setting. Okay. Okay. I will just keep it selected for now. Now we can uh, figure out it later. But for now, our form is working as intended. So you don't have to make any changes for now. Okay. So at this point, this handle expense function does three things. It prevents our application from reloading when I click add expense. Then it console logs the whole expense, the object itself, and then it sets the expense to initial expense. That is our this empty object. But if I go back and if I try to add expense at this point, simply by saying add expense button, uh, see it gets the initial object that was this, and it console logs us. It doesn't tell us, "Ki boss, you have to fill this expenses description, amount, a category, maybe date, and then add expense." So what I will do, we'll have to add some validation here. So I'll go back. The first thing I will do is for every input, I will add another attribute to it, which is required. So this attribute over here will tell the user if he ignores the input fields and directly clicks on add expense. This will tell, hey boss, you have to fill this field because this is mandatory. So I'll just paste it everywhere and hit save. So if I go back and try to refresh and then add expense, it will say please fill this form or this input tags. Great. Now see, this function will just export this value to our another component, that is the use local storage room. So basically what I'm trying to say, for saving our databases or for saving our expenses throughout our application, what we will do, we will utilize local storage. So this function, what will this function do is get all the expense. So I'll just add a comment so we can remember it. So I will say get all of the expense object and give it to the use local storage hook. And also, second thing, if see in our uh, application, either our user would be trying to adding an expense or either trying to update an expense. So irrespective of whatever the action our user is trying to do, this form will remain the same. Just this add expense might say update expense, and this input fields which are initially empty, in case of update, they will be like pre-filled with the data that was supposed to be updated. So what I will say, this function will get all the expense data and give it to local storage hook. Also, check if the user is trying to update the form, or I will say expense, or trying to add the expense. And how do I do that is using a single variable. Like I will say is editing, and if this is editing results into true, he is trying to update the form. If it's false, it's the user is trying to add the expense to our local storage. Okay, so what I will do, uh, I will go ahead and say is editing, which is if the user is trying to add something into our or not add exactly add, but trying to update the existing expense, then we'll say set expense with is editing and the expense itself. Else, what you can do, just say set expense as expense. Now we have never defined this is editing well a variable. So what I will do, I will go up and pass it here inside my uh, parameters of expense form. And I will say is editing. So this is kind of a local, not local. This is a kind of a global variable that will help us communicate with the expense form and also the hooks or the use local storage hook, which will create in few minutes. Another thing is key. I guess this shouldn't be set expense. Instead, it should be on submit. Okay, I'll just do the same thing for this as well. And on submit again would be a function which will be accessible throughout our hooks and components. So yeah, this I will just get rid of this for a line. And what I have to do is not do this now. See, at this point, we are first preventing from reload. So I will just write here prevent from reload, log the expense object, and then clear the form. But Now, if we are doing it in this way, what I'll do, I will just take this expense or a thing, set expense or a thing, get and paste it here. So after submitting, then reset the fields. Okay. So this looks good. I'm not sure about this. So this, um, instead of doing it twice, what I can do is uh, do it once after the if condition is done. So this will be something like this. Great. So do the adding or updating thing, whatever user is trying to do, and then clear out the form. So this will do my work. Okay. So that now we have utilized this expense form file to actually get input from our user. Uh, Once we have got that input, we have to figure out a way to like show the user the list of the expenses. So in this expense dot list dot expense list dot jsx, we'll write code that will render our expenses in a list using maybe a ordered list or unordered list, whatever it you may like. And for now, what I will do, make this file as a function. So I will say export default. I can write that default function, and the function name would be the file name itself. So expense list, and it will accept uh, parenthesis and then the curly brackets. So this is our function that will or is responsible for uh, displaying the list of the expenses that are actually added by the user. And this component here will return a div. So just I'll just say div, and inside this div, uh, I will have a list. So now, not directly li. So we'll just have first ul, and then we'll have li. Okay, so just hit enter. Yeah, this will do. Okay, great. So now what I have to do, somehow I have to get the expenses to export from here, go through the hooks and get it here. Okay. So this expense list function would accept one parameter that is an object, and this object would have many keys. One of them will be expenses. Expenses. And now this expenses are our actual expenses that we will use map function to render here. Great. So see what I will do. I'll go here, and inside of ul, I will say, hey boss, get the expenses, and then use the map function over it. Okay. And map obviously calls an will give a callback function, and this would go here. And inside this parameter, we'll do our actual list of expenses. So now what I can do, okay, now I will have to give a variable or a reference. So I will just say e, and I will just go ahead, and I will say this li will contain e dot description. Uh, then it will hold e dot amount, and then it will also have e dot date. So now it has everything. We got a UL, then the expenses, then we map through it, give it a callback function, and this E is giving us the actual amount and description and date. Great. But what if our expenses is empty? So at this moment, we are just uh, like looping through the expenses. And if there is no expenses at all, we have to tell our user that, hey boss, there is no expenses at this moment, and you will have to add some in order to view them. Okay, so what I will do, I will just wrap this UL inside another curly brackets. And this time I will just check the length of the expenses. If this the length of expense is greater than zero, then we'll show this UL. And if not, then we will just say using a p tag maybe, hey boss, just add some expenses in order to view them. Okay, so I'll go here. I'll say expenses is greater than zero. Then show this. If not, utilize this p element which says uh, no expense found. Great. So this is actually a ternary operator. This is the condition. If condition is true, then give this. If false, then give this. Great. Now, at this point, we have our, maybe assuming we have our expenses and their length is greater than zero, and we actually are able to see some expenses, then we have to give an option to edit and update. So let's say I'll give just two buttons. So it's a button and just pop it down, and one button will say delete and second would say update. Now we want to do some action on click here. So we'll just say on click for update, say or run update expense function, and for delete do on click on delete. So this would be better. So I'll just go here and say on update. And now this function will actually come from this object. So we'll get on update and on delete. So this won't yell at us. Okay. Uh, looks good for now. If we have to make some changes, we'll do it later. So, but for now, it's good. Okay. So at this point of code, we have got expense form, we have got our expense list, but we haven't figured out the way to actually store them. We have got it the way to add them, we have got the way to get them, but we are not actually storing them. So in this next chapter we'll see how to store them using our local storage. Okay, so now to store our to-dos, what I will do, I'll go to this hooks folder, right click on it, make a new file, and name it as use local storage .js, which will actually use our local storage and store our to-dos in that local storage of our browser, and uh, use the same local storage to get our tools. So this like expense list and expense form will be a function. So I will just say export a default function, and the name of function is use local storage and parameters with curly brackets. Now this actually will return two things. We'll say an array, and in that array it will return a value and a set value function. So I'll just give it set value. Now I'll definitely come to this point key what are actually this value and set value and where they're coming from. So in order to understand that, I'll go up and use state. This would be equal to uh, array of value and set value. Okay. Now, this value and set value are actually our two expenses. So, value is our actual expenses inside our local storage, and set value is a function that will help us to set that value. That is set our expenses inside our local storage. So now we are getting this use effect in each this line because we haven't imported that. We'll go ahead and I will say import use state from React. Great. Now this use state should have initial value. So for that, what I will do, I pass an arrow function and it will return us a value. Now this value should be actually stored expenses. Okay. Now, where do I get the stored expenses? So I will just create a variable. It's I would say const stored expenses equals to uh, get not get. I would say local storage, and local storage gives us a function that is get item, and this get item will actually take a key and a value and store this inside our stored expense. So I'll just say it save maybe. So it will be better to like visualize maybe. So now at this point, there may be some expenses stored inside our local storage and may not. Just like here, if we are doing we are we are worried about 2 points. If there is something inside our expense, then show it. If not, just say we haven't found anything. So similarly, we'll use the ternary operator here and we'll say if saved, do something. If not, then give us an initial or empty object. So so what I will do, the saved, the same way we wrote. So this if saved has something, then give our saved data. If not, then give us a value. Okay, now this value is actually the initial value or initial expense. And where will this expense come from is our parameter up here. And this data is actually saved data inside our uh, inside our local storage. So this is this saved data. So I'll just copy this and just get rid of this data. And now see, this saved data cannot be directly thrown out because it would be of uh, it has to be of type string. So what I will do, I will just JSON parse it. So I'll just say JSON dot parse, yeah, parse parse our saved data. And what this will do is it will take our saved data that is actually inside in type of a string and make it an object. So why this is yelling at us? Uh, this should be JSON uh, dot parse. So JSON dot parse. Okay, so what is remaining? So we are getting this. Okay, so where does values and key come from? So get item will have one single parameter, so which is a key. So we'll just get rid of value from here, and this key will get from above parameters. Okay, and then return the value and set value for us. Okay, great. So this value is actually our saved to-dos or saved expenses inside our local storage. Okay, so what else is remaining? Okay, so one thing that is remaining in this whole file is we are getting our to-dos, but we are never getting or setting our to-dos. Okay. One thing that is remaining in this file, that is over here we are like getting our expenses, but we are never adding our expenses. So we'll write here the code here to add expenses inside the local storage, and over here we are getting the expense from the local storage. Great. And how do I get the local storage? How do I get, or how do I set the data in the local storage? So similarly to this set item, we have a method called get item. We'll just say set item, and this time it will take two inputs. It will take a key and values. So key, we have passed our key up here, and our value are our values are expense, which are actually coming from here. So I'll just say value. But now the issue is this requires a string, that this accepts a string. If I hover over this, it says string. But we have got our to-dos or our expenses in a object form. So what I will do, I will just stringify it. So I'll just say JSON dot stringify the value, which will stringify. Now this should run for every change in keys and values. So we'll use effect for that reason. So we'll say use effect, and this will give a callback, and it will just do our setting item wala thing, and we'll just pass dependencies to it, and those are value, not value, but key and value. And this use effect should be imported just like the use statement. Okay, so now that we have got our list, our form, and our actual way of storing them, we'll go to our app.js. I can just see if my data, my server is running. Okay, it's up and running. I'll go back here, refresh this, and this is our actual form. And also, we'll try to get the expense list. So, in the same manner that I have imported my expense form, I will just import my expense list as well. So just I will go here and say expense list and hit enter, and it automatically imports the list for me. So, and I'll not need this because this is a self closing tag. So this will do. And if I go back here, I will get some errors because see what exactly is happening here, because our expense list accept some parameter, and over here we are not passing any of them. So I'll go ahead and say what we need is we need expenses, we need on update method and on delete function. So I'll go ahead before doing anything. Above this written, I will say function on delete. Then it's in the same way, I'll have a function on update, and for updating a function or for editing updating an expense, we'll need that expense, and in here to edit or to delete that uh, and here to delete that expense, we'll need an id of that expense, so just pass id here, and below here I will say on delete and on update. Okay, and also, I have to pass the expense. So there are total three parameters, as we can say, expense, on update, and on date. So an expense would be actual expenses that we are getting from our local storage. So I will go up and I will declare state level variable, not state level variables, but state variables, and say const uh, expense, comma, set expense, 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 and it will be equal to use state. And this would be our data coming from our local storage. So what I will do, I will go up, then we'll say import use local storage from our local storage, uh, and instead of use state, I can go ahead and use this local storage. And what our local storage is giving us back was a value that is the actual expense, and secondly, it was giving us a value, empty value. So I'll just say empty. It will either give us expense or it will give us an empty value. So that's it. Yeah. And expense form, an expense form, we have on submit function. So uh, I'll say on submit here, and on submit it submits our expenses on that, and I will create one function. So not here, but maybe on the top above update, I will say function on submit, take the expense, use the set expense function, and set the experience expenses. Okay, this looks good on submit, and this is the on submit. Or what I will do, on submit will conflict with the on inbuilt on submit function. So I will just say on add and replace this on submit with on add here, and also here. This would be no longer on. So great. And we'll just save this for now. For our on delete and on update, we'll go back to our expense list. And here, see, if I want to delete this expense, I will have to pass not only the function, but the function with the delete ID or the ID of our expense. And in same way, to update this list, we'll have to pass not only the update function, but also the update or the expense. What I will do, we'll just create this as arrow function, so we can pass parameters here. I will say on update expense. So expense नहीं आएगा यहाँ पे e आएगा, because we have uh, stored individual expense in e. And for similarly this, I'll just get rid of on delete directly, and I will say on delete give me dot id. Okay. And if I come back here, here, what I want to do on delete, I want to run this on delete function. So I'll just copy this and paste it here. And same for on update, I want to run this on update function here. Just paste this. Okay. So now this ID and expenses. Now ID is defined but never used, and expenses never defined but never used. Okay. So this would be not expense, but on add. So it will actually add. And by the way, this is not exactly correct. I will definitely improve this. Here we are directly setting the object, but we don't want to see. Here we are actually setting the expense inside the local storage. Okay, so if we directly say expense, then it will override our whole local storage with just the expense. But we don't need that. We need to preserve our previous expense and add the new one. Similarly, when we go here and also for delete, we'll do the same thing. Like we'll say set expense and filter out the expenses. Okay. Same, we'll do same thing for this also. Now, see, we'll just finish the delete because this is the more easier part. So set expense, what expense will do will from expenses, it will filter out. A filter again will give a callback function, and this filter will like not include the ID which is mentioned here. So this expense, so let's say E, will ignore, uh, will filter out where ID is uh, not equal to I. So this will just give us the expenses without this ID. Okay, so now we have completed our on delete function, and let's move on to add expense function. So here, as we discussed earlier, we are directly overriding our whole expense. So instead of that, we'll pass all use these three operators and preserve our existing expense, and then add this object where we will again add our expense with ID. And for ID, so that should be a unique ID for every expense, so that we can use it for delete and later for update. So this ID will come from API or an inbuilt API, that is crypto dot random UID. So this will generate a random UID for every expense we are adding. Okay. Okay. So this looks good. This random UID is a function. So I'll just say function. And okay, this is done. And what about this? Okay. So expense filter E dot. Okay. So E, this should not be E plus E dot ID. So we are actually comparing ID with the ID that user is passing to us. So this is also done. Okay. So let's just save it. And for now, just remove this expense so I will not get any errors when we are trying to previewing our application in Chrome. So just go back to Chrome and let's go here and paste our local host to our URL here so we can preview our application. So we'll just get this again, go here, paste this here, and hit enter. And this should give us our mm, application. Let's see what is going wrong here. So just this cannot access expense before initialization at app. Oh, okay. So we are getting one error at line number 6 in our app.js. So let's go back. And expenses cannot be used before initialization. Mm, okay. This is okay. Okay. So this should be string because this is the key and this is the value. So if I go into use local storage, we are returning key and value. So let's go back and let's go again. So here is our application right there. And if I reload this, I will get my application and try to add entry. So I'd say a description dinner amount maybe 500 and enter your category. Dinner is of category food and maybe a date. So just 24 and I will say add expense. Okay, so we have actually got our expense here, but something is going wrong at expense 2 is not iterable at app.json is line number 9. So let's figure out at line number 9 what is the issue. Expense. Okay, so this is correct. Expense, what is expense 2 is not iterable. expense form, line number 25. Okay, let's go at line number 25 on ad. Okay, expense. This looks good. Okay. Okay, so issue here is uh, this our expense and this expense are making conflict because this is the same expense variable name. So this is our old expense that is actually coming from here, and our new expense name has the same variable name. So what I will do instead of calling it as uh, expense, I will go ahead and call it as maybe new expense and new expense, and we also do here as a new expense, and then we save it. Okay, so now if I go back and it says no expense found because we haven't added anything, I'll go here, I will say dinner 500 rupees, that is amount, uh, maybe food on date 24, and I will say add expense. So we got our one expense added, and it still has some issues. We'll definitely figure out how to. Okay, so let's do it here only. So it says each child in a list should have a unique key prop, and okay, this has to do with this expense list. So here I will go ahead and I will add a key prop, and this time we'll say e dot id. So this a list will have a unique ID. Every list will have a unique ID. And if I reload now, it should not show me that error. And I will add another one. I will just say prepaid bill of amount maybe 699. Category will be bills. Uh, Transaction on 25 of November, and let's add an expense. So it got added. And now I can delete this above, and it stays. So our delete and add is working perfectly, like to the point. Okay. Now states the update. So what should happen whenever I click update? They should not go full white. It should like get all the details. Like in our case, when I click update, so the prepaid bill should go in this its own input tag, and we have done it inside our form. It just we have to access our parameters. So in our this function, so that it will match exact the thing we are trying to do, and then we are going to. Okay, so let's now figure out how we are gonna update our expenses. So we have one function update, and here we have on add the uh, expense to the local storage. But we are using the same function to add and as well as to update the expense. So what I will do, I will make another function. So let's say a function that just keeps the track of editing. So I will say start edit, and in this we'll just say uh, we are like we we are starting to edit the expense, and here will actually edit the expense, and we'll use a ternary operator here. If user is editing, will say update, else add. So this is the logic we'll try to follow. Now let's turn this analogy into actual code. Okay, let's start by going up here and making a state variable for like uh, for getting the state of the form, whether it's updating or trying to add. So I will go here and say forms editing, comma set editing equals to use state, and by default this should be null. Null because by default we are not editing, we are just adding. And we'll have to import use state. So we'll say import use state from React. So let's say React here. And if we'll get rid of this, and if say editing, then call the on update, else call on add. Okay. So this is good. Just get rid of the extra things and maybe add some space. So this looks good. Okay. Now here, instead of on update, we'll just say start edit, and we will just set editing to uh, the expense, and to pass expense here, we'll have to pass through the parameter. So now it is setting edit and passing the expense. And now once we have set the expense, like if we go back here and when I click, okay, we don't have any to dos, I guess. So just add one, just say dinner, and maybe I can say 200. I'll just fill it out. And when I say update, this will this set editing will help us to actually put this data inside this uh, inputs. Okay, great. Now, after the set editing is set towards expense, we'll do the actual editing. Okay, so inside this set expense, what I will do, I will map through every expense, and if the expense ID is equal to the ID that users want to update, then we can update the ID, or else we can keep the expense as it is. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is, give me a minute. Okay, so here, what I will do, I will uh, map to the expense variable, and map obviously gives us a callback. So we'll say E, and it will go through every E. And here, over here, we will map through every E, that is actual expense. And here I will use a ternary operator as discussed, and we'll say if E dot ID is triple equal the ID that user has passed, then do this, else keep the expense as it is. So here we'll update the expense. Now here I can say keep the updated expense as it is, and update the ID. So this updated expense and ID will both come from the user. So I'll just say ID comma updated expense. So it okay. So this does our job. And what I will do, after the expenses had updated, then I can set the editing expense to again to the null. Okay. So this will do our job. Okay. Great. Now let's try. Let's go on our uh, result and try to check if it actually updating our expenses. So I will go on this and say update. Okay. First of all, I will go and inspect, and maybe I can go inside console and see what's actually happening. So okay, I will just reload it and I'll say update. So it's not clicking. Let's try to figure out what's happening here. Inside list, on button, on click to update, pass the expense. Okay, here on update, that is expense, and we are setting to actual expense. And if the editing is okay, good, on update on that here, set expense. This looks good. And if I go back, what I will do, when I'll just console log some things. So to see actually if it's working or not, console.log, I will just console log the ID and updated expense. So this should at least tell us where are the. Okay, so this is not working. The update button here is not working. We'll do the same for this as well. Log console.log. I will say expense here, save it. Okay, and go in the list on delete on update. Okay, looks good. Let's save it and check again. I just refresh. Let's say update. Okay, so I got the here. I got the full object here, but I don't know where it's coming from. So let's go back. And I guess this is this wala expense. So just say add some formatting here. So just say expense from line 29. So it will tell us where exactly our code is working and where it's not. So I refresh it and say again. So it's line number 29. Okay. So the problem is with this code here. Okay. Let's add some formatting here as well. I'll say expense from line 20, and let's go back and see if it's line 20 is printing out. Okay, so line 20 is not at all printing. And this might be because editing is always false. Might be set editing. Okay. Uh, we are setting editing here, but on update, on update. Okay, I'll just change the name of this uh, function so it don't make any conflicts. Let's say edit here, and again here I'll just say edit. Here I'll say edit, edit, and on edit it starts editing and starts editing. And if it's editing, it will do update. Okay, let's try to check it now. Refresh, update. Again, we got the line number 29, but we are not getting the line number 20. Okay, so what we are doing wrong is, see, here we are passing, in this component, we are passing two parameters or destructuring two parameters. One is on add and second is editing. So now the names of the parameters should be same. Like here, I am passing on is editing and on add. So this name is not matching with this parameter name. So this is the very first thing. Secondly, I noticed we are on add function. We are supposed to pass the ID of the uh, expense we want to update and the expense itself. But here, for both the parameters, we are passing the same thing. So what I will do instead of changing editing here, Okay, I will change it here because then again we have the same variable name. So I will say is editing here and save this part and go here, and instead of C is editing, I will say C is editing dot ID, and then use effect. Whenever use effect is triggered, not use effect, but is editing triggered. So this whole function will only run when is editing is affected. So I will just replace this with comma, and we need to import use effect. So I will go here and say use effect, and we'll say if is editing is true, then please set my expense to the desired or the expense that user is wanting to update. So I'll show you. If I press this update, I want my use effect to exactly put all these details into this inputs. So now this will actually not put into our inputs. It will just tell, okay, this is the data, and our form will actually put our data into this inputs. So I'll go ahead and I will say set the description as is editing dot description. So now description here, which is blank when I say update, will be the description from this. Okay. And in the same manner, I will do the things for amount, then date, then for category. And of course, I will have to add comma here. So it won't complain. Uh, Seems correct now. We'll go back, refresh this and say update here. So we have got our data now, and I can just say 500 ke jaga 400, dinner ke jaga I can say when it's lunch, and then say add expense, and this will change the whole thing. Okay. Now one thing is key, if I'm trying to update, this still says add, so it might be a bit confusing. So I will go back, and inside this button I will say uh, ternary operator, and use ternary using ternary operator I will say if is editing is true, then say update expense, else say add expense. So this should do the trick. Okay, let's check if this works. Okay, say, so when I say add, this is update, and if I refresh now, and this is add, if I go update, it says update expense. Great. uh Now that we have done this, we'll move forward. Okay, so now that we have calculated our total expense count with the highest count, the only thing remaining is the total expense amount. So if we see here, we have two expenses here. So what is the total expense we have made? We want to show to the user. So what I will do, in front of total expense amount, I will add this curly brackets, and I will say expense dot reduce. Now, what this reduce method does, it will go through every element of the array and add it to a single value. And that's what exactly we want. So what I will do, I will say expense dot reduce, and give it inside it, give it a callback function of uh, let's say sum, we'll give it sum and the expenses. And here we can say sum plus e dot amount and comma 0. So this is the exact thing. And if I go back, we get 0, 400, 500. So what is happening here is our amount is type of text, so it gets uh, converted to string, and if we add two strings, we get this exact. This is kind of a string concatenation. So what I need to do is go here and convert this amount to number. So just say number here, and I hope so this should work. And if I go and refresh this, it gives us 90 because 400 plus 100 is 90. Okay, great. Okay, so now we have done with total expense count, total expense amount, and the highest amount. We can move forward with the chart. Now, for that, we will use a third-party library, which is known as recharts. And what I will do, I will open my terminal inside this integrated environment, and I will install that recharts package. So, in order to do that, I will say npm I re recharts. So this is gonna install our library. So let's just hit enter and let it do its work. And yeah, it's done. Okay, so now that we have installed our recharts library, in order to represent our data visually in a pie chart, uh, this library has certain constraints. So uh, I will just explain in brief what this library exactly wants. So this library wants our value in this format, an array. Maybe if we have a category of food, then a label of food. Okay, if I can write food, I can say food, and its total amount, maybe 2000 rupees. So around every expense which is categorized as food, it will give, we will have to get the total amount, just like we are getting the total expense amount here. But this is for whole category, but we will have to separate this category wise. So maybe food is of 200, 2000. Maybe bills are of 5000 or 400 something. So this is what we actually want. And but now our data is something like this. So we have food, or maybe 200. Then we have bills, which is of maybe again 200. Then again we have food, and which is again some amount. So maybe 20 rupees. So this is how it is, and this is how it is, and this is how we want to make it. So again, just like we have used reduce here, we will use reduce to convert this structure into this. Okay, so let's go ahead. Okay, so I'll go here and I will say const total cat, short form of total category, is equals to expense dot reduce, and we'll give uh, total comma our expense and go to every expense. Okay, and here uh, we'll say const category equals to e dot uh, category category, and if it's not available, if for some payments the category is not defined, default it to others. And now take this category, uh, the total of this category. So I will say total of cat is equal to is equal to total of cat plus e dot amount. Okay. And one of this has to be number, or else we will get a concatenated string. So I will just say this would be number. And to round things off, I will just say zero here. Okay, this looks okay. So the total category would be total total cat plus p dot amount, and uh, this should be of type number. So because we are taking input as string, we'll convert this into uh, a number, and then we'll just return total cat. Okay, looks good. I'll just get rid of the space. So it looks good. Okay, so let's make this. Now we got our total categories. Now we have to like make it ready in that format. The recharts font. So I will just say const by charts data equals to uh, total cat uh, dot map, and map over keys comma value, and get the key comma value. Okay. Hmm. And this should go under object dot object dot entries, and can just go through this. Then okay, this is again wrapped into. Okay, this looks good. Now we have the pie chart data, and let's. Okay, now we are ready to import the things from import like pie from React charts, and I can say pie. And what are the things I need are is like we need data. So it will come from pie chart data. So I will just say pie chart data. Then keys are actual keys, and values are actual values. So this is what we have gave here. Okay, and this should be a self-closing tag. So let's get rid of this. Mhm. Okay, okay. So this is giving us errors. Maybe it was like this, and this don't know. Okay, so these are not directly from. We cannot directly write as variable because we have never declared those variable. Instead, I can say e as a string and value as a string, and this should be data, and this should be data. This should be value. Yes. Okay. And we will import pie chart pie chart, and this whole thing will go inside the pie chart. So we'll just say pie chart, and this would go inside the pie chart. And pie chart can set width and height. So we'll just say width equals to maybe 150 and height equals to 150. Maybe we can do 200, 200. It's totally depends on how large the uh, pie chart we want. So as of now, I will just keep it 200, 200. And inside this pie, so this pie should be not self-closing. I will just change it to this. Okay. And this pie will have some cells. Okay. So before moving forward with cells, what I will do, I will have to have colors for every cell. So I'll go up here and say const colors, and I will just say it and say as an array. And maybe I can have just three colors for now because I have just three entries or three categories of expenses. So a food bills, and now just we have had others. So I can just say three colors. Any three colors will do. Red, maybe then green, and then so blue. Okay, just add comma here. Okay, so we have also got colors for our cells. Now we can move forward and say cells. So firstly, I will have to map through our pie chart data and then go to cells. So I will say uh, pie chart data, pie charts data dot map, and map through the index, and then give me cells here. So I can say cell. Now this will have to be inputted from the charts. Okay. So cell here, and again, yeah, here cell is self closing tag. So just say cell here, and I will also pass entry here. So we can actually get the index in this way. We'll never use entry here, but it's just for uh, just to get index here. So but then I can say key as index here, and then fill. Fill is like actually filling with colors. So I will say colors uh, index mod colors dot colors dot length and length. So this what does is it will assign each color in this order for every category. So this is like dividing and getting the index of the color. Okay, looks good. Now, okay, so now I can move to browser and see the outputs. Okay, let's refresh, and we have an error. It says total cat cannot be accessed before international. What is that? Okay, just initialize. Okay, so this should be total and not total cat, and this should give us something different. So, total cat dot map is not a function at dashboard 11. Okay. Okay. So this okay, this we have messed with the syntax here, and this should go till here, and now it's good. Okay, and let's go back, and at least we have not error, but we have got this empty space. That's okay. Then we have colors. And I guess blue car spelling is wrong. So I'll just correct this. And going below, data key is, if I say name, not name, but it's name. And this should be, data key should be value. Yes, let's try value. And we got the pie chart, but this is a bit different. We have got one, two, three, four. So we are missing something. Let's go back, and this should be, let's say, key. Let's go back and check if it makes something different. Okay. Let's say name, and to refresh. Okay. What I will do, I want labels when I hover over this. So not actually labels, the tooltip. So what I will do, I will go up here. After cell, I will just say tool tip, not total tip. Just say tool tip. And before pie chart pen, I will just say tool tip. I guess this should do the work. Yeah. So this is 5, 4. No, something is missing. Okay. Let's also add legends. Yeah. Okay. So let's say legends. And this is a self-closing tag. And just get this here and import it from React chats. Stay. Okay, let's go. Okay, legends. It's not legend and it's legend. I guess this should do work. Okay, there is no legend. I guess I have messed up the spelling. What I will do. Okay, this is legend. Yeah, and I have to import it from here. So this will do great. Five. Yeah, so value. We are close. What's exactly going wrong here is if I set initial value to empty, then it should give the total value. So we have two, 500 and 400, but the equation is going totally wrong here. Uh, let's see. Others, but amount the category is correct. Key value. Okay. So what we did here was initialized with empty thing. So we are not feed it with extra data. And then this should be name and not key. So this is something recharge one. And so data key would be value and name key would be name. Okay, and this should go inside an array. Guess. So this should do the work. Okay, let's see. Okay, so not this, but this. So this will be the work. Okay, we are still missing with our. Okay, we are still missing with our pie chart, and uh, as far as I can see, we have done things right. This is name. Okay, we have doing the colors. We have the tooltip, legend, and what does reduce total need of the grade points? What if I grab this inside parenthesis and pass zero here? Okay, let's see. Okay, this is what exactly we needed. And if I add one new entry, maybe Wi-Fi, maybe expenses about 200, and category is bills, then we get 25 and add expense. And this moves. And we have got this tooltip as well. So yeah, now let's do, yeah. So what was actually happening that when we say when we wrap this thing inside parenthesis and give additional zero here, what exactly happens is zero. So this is zero because they see when first time our uh, program will look for the category, it might get undefined. And so if we keep it as this without zero, it will be undefined plus this number, which is not a number. So in case that does not happen, we are adding zero. So zero plus something number will give actually a number, and will it's like making it type safe for now. So this will do our job. Okay, great. So now we have done with pie chart as well. So we have visualized our uh, expenses as well. Now we have to add this filter here, so we can always see our expenses via filter. Our yeah. So we have done with our pie chart thing. So we have visualized our expense. So okay, that was our application. We have successfully managed to visualize our data. We have also done our CRUD operations. We have also kind of summarized our data on our top. So we can see we have mentioned our total expense count and total expense amount and stuff. Okay, that's it. And talking about CSS, we can definitely go crazy about CSS. You write your own CSS and make it fun. That's it. That's it from my side. And bye. See you in next video.